Hey everyone, and welcome back to Firewatch. In the last episode, we found that the communication lines had been cut, and we saw some beer cans, so that kind of tells us it might be the teens. I mean, we did throw their boombox in the water, and they were really not happy about that. So we're kind of going through this burnt forest here. A lot of this episode is kind of just getting to explore more of the world and see more of the sort of unique environmental details that the developers kind of put in, so you kind of remember more parts of the map.
I'm having a hell of a time getting this fucking flapjack off his ass and out to repair that wire.
You want me to go back and see what I can do?
No, I want this guy to have to roll his lazy ass all the way out here.
Flapjack is a choice phrase, by the way.
It really fits the bill in this case.
A lot of the episode 2 is going to be kind of set up for more things later on. There's not too much kind of revelations happening in here, but there are some things that are adding to the mystery of what's happening, because there's been some weird things. I mean, somebody broke into our watchtower and, kind of stole our sheets, and then there was the communication lines. Like, somebody definitely has it in for Henry for some reason.
So, how'd you meet?
Met in a bar.
The birthplace of modern romance.
I stumbled over and told her she was pretty, and that was it.
Aw, you were brave.
I was drunk.
You see, too, that again, as what was happening earlier in the episodes, they kind of fill this downtime where you're just walking through the environment and getting to where you need to go. Because if you look at the map, or I don't know if I bring it up yet, but if you look at the map, the location we got to get to is pretty far away. So there's a lot of time to kind of have these conversations with Delilah and eke out a little bit more about Julia and, how Henry kind of reacted to her illness.
Arch?
No, I guess the bridge is out here. Still, I think I could jump this gap to get across the canyon.
Wow, you're a regular Evel Knievel.
Oh yeah, you should see the jumpsuit I'm wearing.
And a little bit more room for some humor. I think these moments definitely help you get through the game, but I do understand some of the criticisms of this game not having enough of those, and I think that it would be a problem if there was just filled with it, because it would be kind of annoying if Delilah was just constantly talking to you. But I do think that there are definitely long stretches of time where there's not a lot to do. The game makes up for that in the beauty of the spaces, but in the music too. The soundtrack cuts in a lot, and it really feels like you have a little bit more kind of oomph to exploring the world, because a lot of this game definitely is dependent on the pacing. I don't know if, not a lot of the reviews that came out today talked about that, but I think the pacing is incredibly important for this game, and it's built that way in the world. You just see right there that those block trails are just shortcuts. I mean, eventually you'll get an axe, and those shortcuts help you move through the world faster, because as naturally as stories go, like, the stakes will rise, and the story is going to become kind of faster paced in the sense that you want to get to whatever's happening quicker. And that just is natural, and I think that these opening moments are a little bit more explorative, and they because the world doesn't actually change, you need ways to sort of short circuit some of the long times you're traveling through, and also just times to distract you, because there's a lot of moments where it's going to be just a lot of you walking around and looking at the same things, and that doesn't always work. And I think I said this the last episode, I'm not sure how they decide how to bring or when to bring up the other conversations, but it doesn't always feel right, because there's just sometimes where it's just too long and it just feels dull. You start to feel the pacing, and I think the moment you start to feel like, oh, well, this is kind of taking a while, is where the game kind of falters a bit. But it does teach you to use the compass and the map a lot in these sections. Especially since the location is pretty far away, you have to really go through all these kind of windy trails, and a lot of that is helped by locations you understand.
What are you going to do when the fire season wraps up? Are you going to go be with her? Just go back to Boulder?
Maybe I'll go visit. I don't know.
Well, why not?
She's with her family in Melbourne. They're not big fans of mine.
Oh.
Her sister, Susan, is great, but her parents, I think they always thought she could do better, and that I could have done a better job looking after her.
Fuck that. I have no doubt you did your best.
I don't know.
If you want to go visit her, you should go. Don't let a couple of assholes keep you away from someone you love.
I'll think about it. Well, I'm back at my shitty boss is going to get me killed hill.
You ready to give it another shot?
Do I seriously have to?
To get down to 5 Mile Creek? Yeah, afraid so.
I like how the
Quite a ways
game
downhill from here.
continues these sort of in-jokes with Delilah, because it's definitely something that you feel like Henry would mention, and if he didn't, it would just feel really kind of alone, like on a player side, you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember this hill. I'm surprised none of the characters are saying anything, but they totally do, and I think that those little touches are important to sort of make it feel like Henry is more of a realized character, a kind of character that's actually aware of the things that you're doing in the game. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I mean, I think it is novel that we named it and now it's called that. When you like roll over your mouse, it's called the mountain we called it, or the hill. But I think a larger point to the whole narrative is that it's important that it is a thing that matters. They give it kind of weight, or maybe not weight, but just meaning by just kind of naming it and letting you talk about it. And suddenly that is no longer just a thing you climb down. It's now a thing that actually you remember. And have some ownership because you did name it. It may seem like a small thing, I guess, but it's a big thing in games like this, or at least in Firewatch itself, because it's a smaller game in scope anyway, and those moments are really important in a world that's, kind of doesn't have a huge amount of things to do. Because if you think about it at this point, you're pretty used to like opening these cache boxes, exploring the world, opening your compass and looking at your map. Like all these things are starting to become pretty common to you.
How many hikers go missing in the Shoshone?
More than none, unfortunately, with most of them being in this area. The thoroughfare because it's so remote. Why?
I found an old flyer for a missing hiker. It just got me thinking, that's all. Like how you said one day you were talking to the Goodwins and then the next you weren't.
Ned Goodwin didn't get mauled by a bear or stuck in a ravine. He was just a PTSD'd a-hole who dragged his son out to do a job and realized it was a bad idea.
PTSD? That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I don't know. He was in the army. He was off. It's actually the saddest story. He was only discharged because his mother, Brian's grandmother, died. She'd been taking care of him, and Ned was the only next of kin.
Damn. And you got to know Brian a little bit?
Yeah, I talked to him way more than I talked to Ned, that's for sure.
How was he at, spotting fires?
Better than you. He actually liked to stay in the tower.
Boy, for as dry as it is this summer, there's an area down here that's lush.
Oh, you must be talking about the Aspen Grove down there.
Yeah, I think that's where I am.
Those trees are actually one root organism. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah, they share their water as a colony that can live for hundreds of years, even through fire. Can you believe you're actually getting paid to learn all of these amazing things? Also, by what it looks like on this
My
map,
favorite
you'd be
part in
coming
the
up on
game,
a stream that should
I think.
lead you towards where we saw
It's
that
a good
smoke.
part. If you missed that, you can totally miss this too.
Whoa, I found a turtle. Maybe it's a tortoise. It's a thing with a shell.
Well, isn't that something?
It's actually pretty cute.
Well, Henry, if you decide you want it to keep you company, nobody will mind.
Now, what do I call it?
There's only
Looks
one
like
answer
a,
here.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Shelly Duval.
Ah, Shelly. I see what you did there. Very nice.
She's dainty yet powerful.
Well, I loved her in The Shining.
And that turtle's really the only thing here, but again, it's just a little moment of ownership, and that turtle will totally show up later in the game. Like she will be in your watchtower, and that's just a little kind of like token of remembering exploring this far, because you don't really I don't think in this specific location you don't even come back here, so it's just kind of little things that keep you going, I guess.
It's a really nice waterfall down here. Given those girls love a skinny dipping, I bet they're nearby. There's some cloth out here. It looks like it was torn from something.
Strange.
I'll keep looking around.
I think it's interesting that Delilah doesn't say very much with these few items you're talking or asking her about or telling her about, really. She doesn't really have much to say, even though we already kind of know that it's probably the teens. It just feels like that moment I remember playing it just felt kind of alone for like a brief moment that was surprising, because a lot of the time, you know, you always feel like she's not physically near you, but she's always on, like, you can just call her up. And when she doesn't respond, it just feels a little lonely. And they kind of cover that later in the episode, or not in this episode, but later in the game.
So they did break into your tower.
Looks like I have entered
The teen zone. I wonder who came up with that.
Oh, really? And where's that?
It's the name of a magazine for girls. It's on the ground here at their camp. Well, I found some dangerous hunks.
What on earth are you...
It's another one of those magazines. Their tent looks like it's been through the shredder, which would explain that scrap I found.
What could have done that? Like a bear or, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but even a bull elk if it's off its rocker.
Whatever did it, did not hold back. Some of their clothes are all torn up.
That's not good.
You know, maybe I should take one of their sleeping bags as payback.
At this stage, take whatever you want.
Well, they're gone, for sure.
How can you tell?
Well, the girls left someone, me, I guess, a note.
Well, what's it say?
Threatening to call the police because they think I attacked them.
Oh my god, well, did you?
Don't be ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. I've known you, what, 24 hours? Maybe you're nuts.
God, look, I just came out here to sit in a tower, all right? Not get into some mess with a bunch of co-eds.
It's fine. They're gone?
Yeah.
It's important to note
You
that
should
all of
see
this is
this
coming
place.
from
It's just-
Henry, like all this information.
weird.
I mean, it always is, but you know, Delilah's only getting this from him, and so, you know, he could easily lie, and they play with that. Like, they give you dialogue choices. They don't really tell the whole truth, and you can totally just choose those options, and you know, it makes you feel a little kind of, maybe not guilty, but it's not the whole not all the information that you could be giving her, and that comes up later. They acknowledge that. So in the next episode, we're going to board up this window, and then we're actually going to stumble upon a pretty big revelation, and it's going to kind of drive the rest of the game.